Over 7 million different animals inhabit our planet.
There's super moms all over the place. But this is here about super dads, sea dragons, and a little bit on seahorses.
Yes.
What can they teach us?
And he provides oxygen and nutrition through basically a placenta-like structure until he gives birth.
I mean,
and he actually...
That's insane.
Many species are in crisis and need your help. Join the movement at allcreaturespod.com.
Welcome to the All Creatures Podcast. This is Chris.
And I'm Angie.
Angie's favorite, back to the ocean.
I know, I've really become well, I shouldn't say I've become an ocean fan. I've always been a water fan. My birth month is July, so my sign is a Cancer. So I'm definitely a water baby. I grew up on Lake Michigan, and obviously now I live in Florida, so not on the ocean, but about 45 minutes one way or an hour and 20 minutes the other way.
You're close enough. Yeah. And I grew up on the ocean.
You're definitely an ocean. Well, you're an ocean and mountain guy, probably, I would imagine.
Being I grew up in the mountains too.
Yeah,
but done it both. That's why everybody lives there, because you can go skiing one day and then go surfing in the afternoon, the next.
That's incredible.
It's kind of a crazy climate. Yeah, it's pretty fun. Now, this is our official 50th episode.
What?
Even though we've done close to 70, but by my numbering, and then I gave up on that crazy numbering. I was doing like 13 and 13A or 14 and 14A.
Yeah, I think you were taking it like too scientific.
Yeah, I was. I just said, nope, just episodes, started numbering it. So this is our official, quote unquote, 50th episode.
Well,
and I, drum roll.
Yes.
Bugged you to do, because you've been so talking about super moms.
I haven't talked about super moms.
For the 50th. Yes. And there's many. I mean, trust me, there's super moms all over the place. But this is here about super dads, Seadragons, and a little bit on seahorses.
Yes. No, this is an excellent episode. So please stay with us. You're going to have a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, and hopefully learn a lot about the sea dragon. All of us, most people, I'm sure, very well versed on seahorses, but today we're covering the leafy sea dragon. Right.
And, I want to give a shout out to super moms. I mean, species you've covered. I don't know why honey badger always comes to my mind, but, pretty much every species we covered, blue whale and the porpoises and the dolphins. I mean, those moms are amazing. I mean, dads come in, they do their thing. I mean, dads do help out. You do touch upon that. But anyways, today is the focus, is super dads, because you're going to learn in reproduction when Angie gets there that the dads are pregnant and they care for the eggs in a brood pouch. So we'll get there. It's pretty cool. Now, I will say, if you want to stick through the podcast at the very end, this was something that came up because they're called Seadragons. And my son has been bugging me too. He's been going, Dad, I wish dragons were real. And I'm always like, son, they are real. And, we talk about one of these species near me, and he's like, well, that's not a real dragon. I want one that flies. So we're doing one that glides in the water, right? So
yeah, pretty much floats through the water. I don't, close.
Yeah, close. But there are dragons that fly. So I will get to it at the end, and we'll go through a list of other dragons around the earth.
Oh, okay. So we're going to count how many other dragons there are besides the leafy sea dragon.
Yes. Now, you did say leafy. Leafy by far is the most beautiful of these. By far. I mean, just wow.
I will say, I'm not going to counter that. I'm just going to add a clause. I think they're the most fancy and ornate. They are probably one of the most detail-oriented, decorated, bedazzled. Is that a word? I think that's a word.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's
that's a good one. There you go.
They bedazzle their sneakers or something, right? So
you do that. I saw that jacket.
Oh yeah. Don't tell anybody, Chris. It was a bedazzled.
You're from the 80s.
A bedazzled horse head. I would totally wear that.
Jeez.
As long as it's not hot pink, but bedazzled like green and blue and purple. Horse jacket for sure. But so the leafy is brilliant. It is ornate. It is delicate, intricate. It looks basically just like the kelp that it's swimming in.
Yes, it's amazing. It is so amazing.
It's incredible. But looking at there's 3 sea dragons. They're neither of the other 2 species. The weedy sea dragon, which is not a very nice, I guess, because it lives in the weeds, right? Weedy sea dragon.
They call it the common, the common sea dragon,
okay.
or the Lucas sea dragon, because I think some Lucas discovered it probably.
Okay. But those are not as detailed as far as the structures or the appendages that come out of them to help them camouflage, but their colors are a little bit more can be more striking and then the ruby red dragon that was recently discovered just in 2017, was it?
15, and it was Scripps, back near hometown,
California.
La Jolla. Yeah. So Scripps, the DNA evidence. Now, maybe it was a couple years later when they finally made the announcement, but
that it was its own species. Yeah. So those, they're all. We'll put some links and photos up on the show notes. They're all beautiful, but yes, moving back to this leafy sea dragon.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's. I will say, Chris, it is the most spectacular and probably mysterious ocean fish. I think. Okay. I'm sure. Now
I was going to put. I'm going to even go higher.
Oh.
I'm going to say this is the most beautiful animal we could cover and have covered. I love my elephants. I love my, blue whales, and, we just did hippos. I mean, I love them too. And like Fiona, just that baby. But anyways, when you look at this thing, your jaw drops. You're like, wow, that biology created this.
Yes. That's what I just kept thinking. What an interesting evolutionary path. And it makes so much sense for where they live, but what a lot of interesting resources or genetics or whatever it is to their appearance, which is just incredible. And they're, of course, close relatives of the seahorses.
You're right. They do look like seahorses. And that's a great description. They're part of the family, when I get to evolution here in a minute, of seahorses and pipefish. So when you think of a seahorse, and I think most people know kind of what a seahorse looks like, but they have this really long pipe of a nose. That's why they're called pipefish. And they, how would you describe like the seahorse? So like instead of a seahorse that's up and down, these ones are more sternal or on their stomachs.
And the leafies are generally going to be brown or yellow in body color to even have a little olive tint to some of their appendages. And similar to seahorses, I would probably say they have a series of hard exoskeleton-like rings around its entire body, and of course its snout as well. But you're right, Chris. They almost look like they're on their belly, and then from almost every direction, they have these broad, flat appendages that look like branches of seaweed or plates that surround their body.
Right. Absolutely, yeah.
And along with these appendages, they have several sharp spines that can aid in the defense against predators. And some researchers do say that their color can vary depending on, of course, their diet and their location and environmental stressors. But most of the videos and photos I was looking at, they are this yellowish color, yellow greenish, yellow brown, to blend into the sea kelp or the sea grasses that they live in.
It's almost like they got an S-shaped body, I guess. I'm just trying to think of how to describe
it's almost like
the shape.
I guess if you tipped maybe a seahorse forward, maybe on its belly.
Yeah, that's a good way. That's a good way. Yeah, and they do have a couple interesting physiology. Their eyes are like chameleons, and they can look in different directions.
Oh, interesting.
So one eye can be looking forward, one eye can be looking back. So they can move independent of each other.
Yeah,
and so they have really good eyesight. I will say too that their tails are not prehensile like a seahorse.
Right, like a
seahorse can use that to grab.
Yeah, that holds onto the grasses or whatever we've seen. Well, and Chris, I keep calling these beautiful structures that are growing out of their body, or the tops, bottoms, sides, as appendages, but that's inappropriate technically because they don't move. They're basically just like ornate branches with leaves.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
They don't move at all. And in general, the leafy sea dragon or sea dragons in general aren't huge swimmers. They're more, like Chris mentioned earlier in the pod, floaters. But they do have really, they have almost translucent fins behind, if you can imagine where their ears would be. I don't know if they actually have ears. I'm not sure about fish, or let alone sea dragons, but they're behind their head, right behind their eyes, these little cute little fins that basically never stop moving, but predators can't see them because they're translucent. And then they also have the same, I guess it would be like dorsal fins along their lower back. So of course they can move left or right. They're not, it's not like they can't move. And they use these fins, but these ornate appendages or leaves like structures that are all over their body are just there. They're not, they can't move.
Fish can hear. They just different hearing ranges. So seahorses can hear. And now we're not experts obviously in seahorses or some how fish hear, but
I want to be after this. Oh my goodness. I guess I didn't realize it was the 50th episode, but I know you've been wanting to do Seadragons, or I thought seahorses.
Yeah. And then I thought of the Seadragons, and I just was like, we got to do these ones.
And I've just been having so much fun. I've been having fun the past few days because a few days prior to that, I had come down with probably like a 24-hour bug, flu, or whatever.
Yeah.
And, my eyeballs and my hair actually hurt underneath my kneecaps. It was
bad.
It was not fun whatsoever. And so, but then I was really happy because nobody in my house had gotten sick until early this morning when Xander, my 4.5-year-old, went from 100 miles an hour to crashing.
Yeah. It hits you hard.
And vomiting, and all we could do was sit and watch cartoons on the couch. A lot of nature shows. We like Nature Cat, and of course, there's a great one here in the States called Wildcrats.
Yep.
And there's zoologists that go on adventures. So we watched a lot of that today. Yeah. But during that time, I was just watching videos of leafy sea dragons.
Yeah, they are amazing. I saw them first at the Tampa Aquarium in Florida. So
wow,
I know
you've seen them.
Yeah, there's a few around, and I didn't know that they existed. I mean, I walk in, you see these things, the leafy sea dragons. My jaw hit the ground. I was like, "What are these?" And
wow.
Now doing some of the research into them, it is just amazing. They're amazing. They're gorgeous.
They're very special. And just briefly, they live in depths of about 5 to 15 meters. And once again, they can live in clear water, low light conditions, prominent vegetation, seagrass meadows, seaweed beds, rocky reefs. And they are endemic to Chris's neighborhood.
Yes. Yes, near me.
See, now I know why I picked it. Now you and Ashley have a scuba diving date to go see these guys.
I know.
Seriously.
And I talk about, sharks aren't scary, but like Adelaide and that parts of Australia is like the number one great white shark attacks in the world.
Yes, to clarify, it's the south coast of Australia, right? So the whole southern coast of Australia, which is very, very much well known for the great whites. Although I read an article that they're disappearing from there, so I'll have to check that out.
Sad. But I love them.
This is in 5 or 15 meters of water, so I think you're pretty safe.
No, that's like, I've heard down to 50 or 160 feet. I mean, that's like 30 feet. That great white can swim right through that, no problem.
Oh, you're right. I was thinking of feet, not meters.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'm not. You're right. No way. Yeah. I'm not going 15 meters off the coast.
Especially
of Australia
like
without a cage.
No, we'll be okay. I'm just kidding. Like, it's so rare, but it is the great white hotspot. Actually, the number one place in the world is near you in Florida for shark attacks. Like, not huge great white attacks, but bull sharks, spinner sharks, other sharks. It's like near Port St. Lucie.
Right. That's where they take a little bite of you and they're like, "Oh my God, you taste like a McDonald's hamburger, Chipotle, Starbucks coffee drink," and then they let go.
We taste horrible.
Exactly.
We taste horrible. It's like eating garbage.
Exactly.
Like,
so I'm sure. So I know. Obviously it's scary to whoever it happens to, but I don't think there's a lot of fatalities due to sharks in Florida.
No, it's really rare. One a year.
And you're way more likely to die from being kicked by a cow. So there's that. This
morning in New Zealand, some lady got trampled by cows and some guy went to go help her in Auckland and there were cows rampaging all over the place. It was funny. Anyways, it made me think of, it's sad, but the people that get killed by cows. I mean, cows are more dangerous than sharks. So, but you're right. The common sea dragon, their range is from west to east Australia, all along the south around Tasmania. The leafy sea dragon, not quite far west or around Tasmania. Now, again, Tasmania is the island that's part of southeast Australia. Under there's the strait and then the Tasmanian island. The reds are, since they're so new, they don't know. I mean, similar habitat, just a little bit deeper is what I read on the Discovery. So these are where sea dragons are. Now, seahorses, they range all over the world in tropical, warmer oceans. That's where they like to do.
And now these sea dragons, they're medium in size. They're, from what I think of a seahorse, they're typically going to be bigger than a seahorse. And they can grow up to 13.8 inches or anywhere from 30 centimeters to 50 centimeters in length. Or one website was nice. It said about the size of 2 teacups. It must have been an English website. Teacups. I mean, they're bigger. They're bigger. They're not tiny little things. They're bigger fish in the ocean. So, and I know how we opened it. We're going back to the ocean, but even though, and we'll get to conservation later in them, they're still at risk. What's going on in the oceans. Oh, absolutely, they're at risk. Yeah, and we'll talk about that in conservation, some of their threats.
Well, and then I just read, and then one of the things I read, thinking about, why should we care about sea dragons? There's only 3 species that we know of.
Correct.
There could be more because of the 47 species of seahorses, 14, Ange, almost a quarter of them were discovered in just the last 8 years.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's
insane.
incredible.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
I saw that factoid. I was like, they found 14 of them.
Well, at this rate, that means they're going to find another one in the next year or so.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, and so the oceans are at risk. Again, another cog in the machine in keeping nature in balance, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's just what they do. Yeah,
and they're important predators on bottom-dwelling organisms. And we'll talk about that nutrition, but removing them once again will probably disrupt coastal ecosystems in these grass beds. And in regards to seahorses, switching gears a little bit, with seahorses, they're actually an important source of income and food for many fisheries around the world. And if you're going to protect seahorses or seahorse habitat or sea dragon habitat, you're also going to protect many other species in that ecosystem as well. And more specifically, I think, to the sea dragon and probably seahorses as well. But in Australia, it's been made the official fish emblem of Southern Australia. And it's huge with recreational divers as far as trying to see them. And now there's actually different dive sites and tours that are directly for the sea dragon.
You're right. So if there are people out there diving, I'm sure it's safe. And when I go to Oz, I will make sure to plan a trip to Adelaide and go on a boat and jump in and out and see my sea dragons, because it would be cool. And the videos you were talking about, I'll provide them links in the show notes, because I watched a couple of them, diving, looking for them, and then looking in the kelp beds and then finding one.
Yeah. And Chris, I think the other really, you touched on the beginning of the pod, but the other really important reason to care about seahorses, especially if you're a physiologist, reproductive biologist dork like myself, is they're extremely crazy and unique male reproductive. Super dad. Yeah. Sorry, the word couldn't. It was like I'm blowing. It's blowing my mind. Like what?
It's okay.
Like superheroes, I guess. Yeah.
They're just such a unique.
It's very fascinating.
It's so unique, and
very unique. There's no other species that do what they do, and so therefore, from I guess wanting to look at their genes, maybe trying to understand more about reproduction and what genes turn on what as far as maternal genes. Anyways, things like that. There's a lot that we don't know about them, and so it'd be really sad if they were all wiped out before we could understand. Understand them more.
And we're jumping ahead a little bit, but it is so amazing. It does have an effect on everything. I agree with you. Trying to understand why they developed that mating strategy, what benefits it gives them, because just jumping ahead real quick to evolution. I read that these are one of the quickest adapting animals on Earth. That,
oh, really?
Yeah, they evolve very quickly. And
I mean, hence all the leafy appendages when they live in leafy,
yeah,
leafy
grasses
kelp
and
beds.
stuff. Like, it's insane. And you think about how natural selection works. You know, it's the ones that develop these leafy appendages. Maybe they were little at first, but they hid better. And so the ones that didn't have them got picked off. So these ones that had them bred, and then the ones that had more elaborate, they bred, and the other ones got picked off. And over time, you evolved this incredible looking animal. Now, the Seadragons genus is Philopteryx, and the leafy sea dragon, I think you would like this one, is Philopteryx equus or equus.
Eques. Yes, horse.
It's EQE. Yes, yeah. That's what I thought. Horse is pretty funny. The common is Taneolatus, so P. Taneolatus. Okay. Anyways, the family, is interesting. So the family is Syngnathidae, and these are the pipefish, seahorses, and sea dragons. Yeah, this is what I do at night, Ange. I practice
over and over.
Yes,
I need to start doing that. My enunciation.
I'm not kidding you. I write these out and I practice them because I know I have to say them. But there's over 215 species. So 47 seahorse, 3 sea dragons. So 50 of them are the seahorses or dragons, and then 150 plus 165 are the pipefish.
Yeah, I've been able to actually see pipefish when I've been snorkeling or diving. I've never seen a seahorse, though, or obviously a sea dragon, as I haven't been to your neck of the woods.
Yeah. I remember,
but definitely on the bucket list for sure.
Yeah, I remember seeing pipefish for sure in Hawaii when I was there.
Oh yeah.
And then when I dove the Great Barrier Reef, this was so long ago. Yeah, it was 2006 is when I went, so 12 years ago. Or something like that. And yeah, I don't remember seeing any of them, but yeah, they're just crazy because they all have these long tube like snouts, and pipefish usually were, when I remember it, they were up near the surface, zipping around.
Yeah. But it just makes them look so charming. This cute long nose. I mean, once again, I'm anthropomorphizing it with putting my human Angie touch on it, but they're just it's almost like they have like a trumpet for a nose.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. It's like a trumpet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cute.
Yeah, they're just the little tiny mouths, and like you said, that armor plating. They all kind of have that, and they're not strong swimmers. None of these are.
No.
And they live around reefs or kelp beds and in warmer oceans, and then they're all super dads, all of them. Pipefish too. So
yes, they're all super dads for sure. It's awesome.
Now, the sea dragons, we'll get to conservation on them. They're not critically endangered, but there are many species of seahorses. So the one I looked at was the Greek 9-spine stickleback is critically endangered. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, in fact, for as far as seahorses are concerned, there's 42 species of seahorses listed on the IUCN Red List of threatened species.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's real crisis point in the oceans.
And there's around 30 scientists that study wild seahorse populations around the world. So that's not very many.
No, not really. For one like genus of animal, only 30, that's it.
Correct.
So, and yeah, that's kind of sad. Ugh. Because I mean, looking at their evolution, the Seadragons, these pipefish and seahorses, just to start out again, we've done some fish, but fish evolution spans over 400 million years, right?
It's crazy. Long time ago. Yeah. They've been here forever.
Yeah, long. Yeah, they've been here forever. Went through many mass extinctions and survived. The sea dragons are considered a bony fish. So, all of these. And like I said, they just adapt rapidly. Now, sea dragons obviously is going to be a lot harder as far as their evolution history, because there are so few of them in a very specific region in Australia.
Right.
So don't have a lot of stuff on that. But seahorse evolution, there are some fossils that they have found. Now, the evolution of these seahorses and sea dragons started in Australia and Asia.
Oh, interesting.
So, Australia is kind of moving up, right? The Australian continent, and crashing into Asia. So they think...
I did not know that. I mean, it makes sense, but...
Yeah. So about 25 million years ago, when Australia collided with like New Guinea, it kind of raised the sea. And so it's made it shallower. And so now all of a sudden you had all these seagrasses that were kind of rising up. And so that really allowed seahorses to evolve. You know, these pipefish that were there evolved into seahorses. And then, you know, eventually seahorses have their prehensile tails where sea dragons don't.
Right.
You know, at some point around then, this common ancestor split between seahorses and sea dragons. But again, we don't know. We don't know because there's just not a lot of evidence. And like you said, there's only 30 scientists studying this. So that's crazy. You know, it's not a lot of people know about it, but you know, it's interesting. You know, they do have a history. People are studying pipefish and stuff. So, you know, I have a nice little graphic I'll put on the show notes that kind of talked about this in the link to the article. If you're interested more, you know, the sea dragons are probably a little bit more ancient. I don't know. I'm kind of extrapolating because their common ancestor was kind of sternal, like a sea dragon.
Okay.
Where seahorses are more upright.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Who knows? We, you know, that's just a hypothesis at this point on mine. Now, sea dragons are bigger than seahorses. I did find the largest seahorse.
Oh.
It's not in history, but
sure.
The big belly seahorse. And it was found. Where can you find it, Angie? Where do you think?
Florida.
No, other side of the earth.
Indonesia.
No, they're close. New Zealand. Australia, New Zealand.
You guys get lots of cool stuff in your ocean.
We have it's amazing down here. There's so much cool biology. You know, they get about 35 centimeters, 14 inches.
That's pretty big,
but
yeah.
Sea dragons are still big. Yeah, it's a big seahorse. So there are big seahorses out there. So Angie, did you find any of it or anything on how long they live? The only thing I saw was in captivity. Some can live up to 9 years.
I read about 7.
About 5.
Mm-hmm. And in the wild, they don't know. Some divers, I was watching a video of a diver that's been just independently looking at and keeping track of leafies. That's what they call leafy sea dragons, leafies. And he's been watching a pair that have been around, of course, this is in the ocean, right? For 7 years. So, but in the wild, I don't think they know exactly.
Yeah. How long? Now it's interesting because South Australia, I mean, that water's not warm. I mean, the water off New Zealand is not warm. You know, the creeks, oh my God, they're freezing. Everything's freezing here.
So South Australia is not warm?
Yeah. So it's not tropical. It's not. It's kind of like where I'm at, you know, near Auckland. So these, like the water temperatures, 14 to 19 C or 58 to 66 degrees Fahrenheit. So
okay, yeah, that's not.
Yeah, you always think of, you know, warm water with seahorses and reefs and stuff.
That's wet. Yeah, that's wetsuit for sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Maybe 2 wetsuits.
Yeah, no. The tropical portions of Australia is more the northern, you know, the northern coast, the Gold Coast, up Brisbane north and whatnot. Like you said, they do like 5 to 15 or 16 to 50 feet. Okay. So there you go. Right. So 50 feet dive, Ange, is pretty deep. It's pretty deep. 5-story house.
Here. I'm like, 5 to 15 feet. That's not a problem. I'll just snorkel that.
Yeah.
Oops. Hashtag mom brain.
Yeah, that's all right. You had a busy day with the boys. They have seen some as deep as 30 meters or 100 feet. So
yeah, that's deep.
You know, now what's interesting with the video, the one I was looking at, it's these 2 divers that are looking for the Seadragon. Mm-hmm. And they finally find one. They're looking in the kelp bed. And they find one. And that's interesting because females have their territory is roughly, if it's similar like seahorses, about 100 square meters or 328 feet. So that's pretty big.
Yeah,
that's a big territory. Male territory is about 50 square meters. So they overlap a lot, right?
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, when you're diving for them or looking for them, you're not going to see, you know, 100 sea dragons in one location.
No.
You see one here, one over there, one over there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they're really spread out. Now, I did have to look this up because I knew I was excited to ask. What do you call a group of seahorses or dragons?
A herd?
Yeah, geez, that was too easy. Boo. Yes, a herd of seahorses.
You're talking to the horse girl
cute.
over here.
I know. I thought it was funny though. Yeah, they do call them a herd.
I guess with the dragons, maybe I'd call it like a scare of dragons, or I don't know. There's stuff.
Yeah,
there's fun stuff
dragons.
you could do with that. Yeah.
Well, I got a list of dragons at the end, so we'll pick another one, and then we'll see what cool names.
Awesome.
They come up with. Yeah. These have really no known predators. I guess they've evolved again to have really good defenses. Because nobody can see them.
I mean, how?
Well,
you can. A predator can't find them. They camouflage so well. So probably they're.
Or if they do attack them.
Right, they have all these.
You said earlier.
Yeah, they have. Besides the appendages, they have some spines. Was it spines?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And armor. Yeah, and armor, so it protects it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I read about predation with them is the young could be eaten by other fish.
Yeah. I mean, that's a problem of any young fish out there, for sure.
Yeah, I know. God.
And then probably humans are probably are definitely a threat of, or were a threat of theirs. They were being snatched up for aquariums left and right. But we'll talk about a little bit more on conservation. But the Australian government stood up and put the kaputs on that.
Thank you, Australia. Between you and your platypus and your Seadragons.
Yeah, those don't mess around, man.
Yeah, we want to see those. And the salty crocs. We got to do salty crocs. Or alligators.
That would be fun.
Yeah, everything in Australia will kill you except these guys.
Yeah. Well, no, Chris, the story is really interesting. When there wasn't a lot known about these guys, I don't know how many years back, 20, 30, 40 years back, probably 30 years back, divers would often see these sea dragons and keep them as pets. Obviously, lovers of the ocean. These are once again, if you haven't already Googled them, hope if you're driving you haven't, you'll wait till you get parked somewhere, but or look at our show notes. But they're gorgeous, they're stunning, and so I can understand why people would be tempted to do that. But because of that, the IUCN had listed them as near threatened. And I don't know if it was in response to the IUCN or just in general. In 1996, the Australian government's Department of Environmental Heritage said that the leafy sea dragon is now completely protected in South Australia because of the demand for these guys in aquariums. And it basically threatens their existence. So kudos to the South Australian government down there. And so since then, I think it came out in 2017, I want to say, Chris, or 2016, the IUCN bumped them down, I guess, to least concerned.
Right.
Which is awesome. There's not a lot of feel good stories that you and I get to share such as this. And this is an amazing example of people not being really educated and understanding, if one person takes an animal and puts it into an aquarium, not a big deal. But if everybody does it and these guys only live in this small little niche of just, South Australia.
And they die within a few years. Yeah.
And the other thing too, that's important to note with the leafy sea dragons in general, but especially the leafies, I don't think they've successfully bred when living under human care, even in aquariums that are professionals that work with them. So I think it's it's just it's a really interesting story and a heartwarming story where the government acted. And divers totally respected it because they became educated about it.
Yeah.
And I think also they're realizing too, heck, these guys are so awesome. We can probably make some money sharing instead of
like ecotourism.
Yeah. Instead of taking them out of their habitat, we can bring people as long as they, follow the rules and are respectful of them and don't exploit them. We can bring people to their habitat and get to enjoy them indefinitely. So. Well,
and it just shows, I think, how a government can step in and have a positive benefit to wildlife.
Yes.
Unlike what's going on in the news, they're in the U.S. where they want to deregulate the protections that they have.
Chris, I was in a good mood. So. Come on.
All right. Okay. So these things.
Kidding.
Let's
it
talk
is. My country needs help right now. They need a lot of help. And especially with our Endangered Species Act being potentially torn up. So follow Chris and I in the news where I talk a lot more openly about that.
Yeah. It's frustrating. The diet of these is really mysis shrimp or small shrimps and other small invertebrates.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is kind of what they're always hunting for. Now, they will eat about 30 to 50 times a day is what I read. They don't have teeth, but this was cool. It's again, how evolution works. These long snouts have a purpose. And really what it is they shoot it into crevices, maybe in those kelp beds in between, somewhere the kelp's growing or whatnot. And they go in and use it like a vacuum cleaner and suck up their food. And their snout can actually enlarge a little bit to get bigger, like a snake, when a snake
Oh,
eats.
that's so cool.
So I just imagine these little guys just, sucking up all these little shrimps or whatever else
They
they're
are
eating.
seriously the cutest things on earth. I think, like you said, they probably are the most beautiful, ornate species that we have covered to date.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's some insects that are just like, wow, and they have some really cool stuff. The birds of paradise, probably, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful birds
Yeah, I was
ever.
going to say, there's some birds we need to cover that are just take your breath away. Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they can come close to leafy sea dragon. I just don't. You look at it, and I was just like, all right, you win.
you
win.
Down. You win. Any of those sea dragons. Seahorses are pretty cute too, but yes, no, the decoration on them is just incredible. When it's not decoration, it's camouflage. It serves a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, it's biology. I mean, it's biology. That's what's amazing.
It's biology at its finest. And when we get to repo, we'll talk a little bit about mate selection and how there's some role reversals with male and females, obviously.
Right.
But we'll touch on that and who has to have a prettier dress between them because all the roles are reversed.
The behavior's kind of interesting too. I know you couldn't. I mean, obviously, you don't have a ton. They don't do a whole lot of interesting things, I guess, besides look gorgeous. But I know, once we get to repro too, some of the repro behavior is incredible as far as, dedication to each other. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously it's important to note the seahorses or sea dragons in general they're really difficult to study in the wild because of their ability to blend in like chameleons basically and in their surroundings. But obviously studying them when they, living under human care from the divers. And I mean, people have looked at them and yeah, like Chris said, it probably looks like they're not doing a lot. These leafy appendages aren't used for swimming. So in order to move, they use these two fins in the one pectoral and one dorsal. But obviously they have some feeding behaviors like Chris said, and they have been known to swim alone or in pairs. And I was trying for the reproductive research behavior, I was trying to learn more about that. And yes, we don't know much about leafies with that. But interestingly enough, one of the video that I was watching who dives with them all the time for 7 years, they have names, and there is a couple that's been like pretty much monogamous for 7 years. So I think we're just starting to learn more about them. And I know typically with seahorses, they will be monogamous just for a season. For like they don't, they're not polyandrous. They don't have lots of, or are polygynous. What would it, there's not lots of women coming and laying eggs.
It's not a free for all, right? They're just one on one, right? One on one.
But with seahorses that switches during different breeding seasons. So, but there's a lot we don't know about sea dragons. And so therefore we need more than these 30. This is 30 scientists studying seahorses. Right. I don't even know if honestly, I'm sure there's people studying leafy sea dragons that I'm just not as aware of. But I did find scientists in 2017 studying weedy sea dragons. They're like cousin or whatever. Yeah. And they were, and those guys were out of New South Wales, Victoria, and Tasmania. They're basically using the marine equivalent of facial recognition software to photograph and track these weedy sea dragons off the coast of New South Wales.
That's cool.
Victoria and Tasmania, because they know that their numbers are down. And once again, there's not a ton of researchers. So they basically use citizen science and, of course, their own scientists too, to take pictures of the weedy sea dragons and then trying to help get a count to see if any of them were repeat or not repeat.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way you don't have to put a tag on it. You don't have to handle it. It's really, once, technology meets wildlife conservation, which is the stuff that we can do now, is pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it basically, these photos act like a fingerprint for these weeds. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's a few weeks ago we had, I think Jesse brought it up, or it was when I was talking about using AI. So in animal behavior studies, I don't know if you remember that, but the camera traps, just to jump in about how technology is helping, it takes thousands of man or woman hours going through all these images and identifying species and things like that. They're developing AI software that can do it in minutes rather than hours, like 1,000 hours or whatever it is. It will do it super quick and go through and count and be absolutely correct. So using facial recognition software with Seadragons, that's amazing.
Yeah. And I actually stand corrected. They're not, I believe it's just the scientists that are currently, for the next 2 years, are involved in the program. It's not open to other people at this point.
Right.
But still, it's really, really cool. And the reason a lot of this project was endorsed is because the amount of sea dragons is declining. There's actually a popular dive site off of, it's called Barrenjoey Head in Sydney's northernmost point. And it's called Dragon Alley. But the species is like not even really around there anymore.
Right.
So I think that's where scientists said, hey, we better start counting these guys and paying more attention to them. And hopefully with not only with them studying and taking more photos of weedy sea dragons, just in general, hopefully they'll be learning more too about their behavior and where, where they are currently, where the populations are at. Because every little bit helps. But,
right. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. But Chris, drum roll, what we do know about seahorses and thus sea dragons is their very, very unique reproduction. Their mating occurs during the summer months, which is our winter months, summer months in Australia.
It's winter right now. It is winter. It's getting warmer though a little bit today.
The sea dragons are not mating right now. However, it is very unique.
It is. And we're always PG-13 when we get to repro. It's, the normal mating strategy for most animals. Now, there are some differences, like say fish. A female will go, the two fish will mate. So the female will lay the eggs, the male will lay the sperm on top of the eggs, they fertilize, now you have fertilized eggs. That happens in some amphibian species. But you go from insects all the way up the chain. Most mating strategies are the males depositing their gametes inside the females.
Correct. Where
her eggs are, that become fertilized. And, like copulation, things like that, that is their normal breeding strategy. It is completely reversed in pipefish, seahorses, and sea dragons.
Yes.
The female deposits her eggs in the male's brood pouch.
Yep.
And then he'll fertilize them there. Yeah.
Yeah. She uses what's it called, an ovipositor to make sense to deposit her ova into the male. And so for male seahorses, they have like a special, it's called a brooding pouch. That I like that name. Yeah.
I know.
That provides.
Makes you think of kangaroos.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Yeah.
But it's like on their belly area basically. And it's a pouch that provides protection, gas exchange, osmoregulation, and even some amount of basically provisioning for the embryos developing inside during the quote unquote gestation period. Yeah. And
so he's pregnant.
Yes. He's pregnant. Yes. I mean, he's basically pregnant.
He's pregnant.
And what I came across is the fact that the father provides energy-rich lipids and calcium for these eggs that are obviously little tiny seahorses are forming in the brood pouch. And the other thing, Chris, that was just blew my mind, and I need more time to study this, so we might have to do part 2, just seahorse reproduction for dorks like ourselves.
It's crazy.
But
it's crazy.
The male,
it is crazy.
Check this out. You're a blood flow guy. The male keeps blood flowing around the embryos. He controls the salt concentrations in the pouch, and he provides oxygen and nutrition through basically a placenta-like structure until he gives birth. And he actually,
it's insane.
And he
it's
actually
insane.
has he has like contractions for up to 12 hours to like shoot these little babies out of his belly.
He is super dad. There's nobody else on earth. This guy is super dad.
Totally super. This family is super family. The Seadragons, seahorses, and pipefish. Now, keep in mind, I've been talking about the seahorse, generically speaking, because the Seadragon's a little bit different. Okay, instead of a pouch, and Chris, there's a video you'll have to put on our show notes because I just like watched it and was like had my mind blown. But instead of the pouch, the seahorses have. Male Seadragons have like a spongy, broody patch on the underside of the tail, where the females, when they deposit their bright pink eggs during mating season, and then the male dragons wrinkle their tails and turn it into like little tiny cups. It almost looks like suction cups holding it, each individual egg. And for sea dragons, the leafy sea dragon, the female is going to deposit about 200 embryos on the surface of his tail. And the offspring stay there for 4 to 6 weeks until they hatch.
It's so long, too.
And that process, this poor super dad, that process, wait for it, several days.
Come here, buddy.
I shouldn't feel too bad for him.
There's so many directions we could take.
I was to say both of my births took, depending on what your definition of several days are, but mine took, I would say,
it's not
a couple days.
It's not giving birth like women or most mammals.
But it is. So. I mean, the male has like all these capillaries on his tail. Then they swell and they wrinkle and they basically make egg cups.
And it's just, I'm sitting here thinking as a scientist, why? Right? I mean, just the biology behind it.
The answer I didn't find, and I guess I always forget. I go down one road and then I forget the road I did not go down, and I wish I would have now. But I don't know how the male's sperm is getting then to these eggs. Right. Like, where's it coming out of? Question. Does he have like a, what is like a penis-like structure? Obviously not. And then and down by the tail, it makes a little more sense. But like when they're actually for the seahorse, I guess. Anyways, science, you get one answer and then you have like 14 more questions. That's the story of my life. Anyways, but briefly, once the young are born. And young seahorses, do you know what they're called?
Foals?
Close. A fry.
A fry. Oh, yeah, fish fry.
A fry of sea dragons or seahorses. Once they're born, their yolk sac that they provides nutrients for the first couple of days. But the newborns can swim and hunt successfully, and they grow a little bit each year. But yeah, what I really want to touch on though is that. If we think about this reversal, like you said, male pregnancy. Now, technical sea dragon experts they don't know if a pregnancy is the right term for a dragon.
Okay.
As compared to the seahorse. I think in the seahorse scientific community, it's fine to say that the male seahorse is pregnant. Like that's an acceptable term. But in sea dragons, it's questionable. But what we do know is there's definitely obviously a role reversal, a huge and sexual related behaviors. And so interestingly enough, the females exhibit a competitive behavior that's normally what males would have to do. And Chris, this is what you'll like, buddy.
Okay.
So with that being said, the male ends up being the choosy one.
All right. It's about time.
Which is normally the females.
Yes.
And
can you think of any other species where females fight over males besides humans, I guess sometimes, but like as far as in the in the natural world, I can't really think of anything that's like the females will fight over the right to mate with the male. Some birds, okay, maybe some birds. Maybe.
I don't. I mean, off the top, I just know that male birds have more of the pretty plumage, right?
Yeah, but they're attracting a female, right? I mean, that's what, like the birds of paradise, they're dancing and doing all that crazy stuff.
Yeah, no, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. If anybody knows.
Hashtag mom brain.
No. I can't think of it either. If anybody knows that they're listening, they could let us know. Drop us a line of any. Yeah, I mean,
sometimes the females are bigger, and definitely there's females that have a lot of male-ish roles.
Hyena comes
to mind. But no, and it's really interesting.
I guess hyenas would be one. Okay, maybe. Okay.
Oh, and Chris, this is funny. So for pipefish, they have the ability to use resources differently for broods of offspring. So pipefish, once again, a little bit different. But the males of this species have been known not to take care of offspring that come from a mother that they're not that particularly fond of.
Screw you.
Isn't that? They're like, I don't like you. You were mean to me.
Poor little babies.
We don't make pretty babies. But so the males will put more resources into broods from larger, more attractive females.
Okay.
And they also, interestingly enough, they also don't put as much effort into ensuring the survival of a brood if they just hatched a successful, healthy brood. So that makes sense. Like the pressure's down. But that's pipefish. And I think they're obviously, once again, they're a little bit more studied.
Yeah. I mean, it's some of those behaviors may be probably observed, at least,
Right. But once again, from an evolutionary or biology, ecology standpoint, these Seadragons, seahorses, and pipefish are really exciting to study as far as like a sex role reversal. And it's such a unique opportunity to understand sexual selection. And we're just, especially with the leafy sea dragon or sea dragons in general. I mean, we're just at the very tip of even
understanding what's going on. Yeah. It's, it always comes down to funding too, but it's with conservation. I mean, again, the oceans are in crisis. Luckily, the sea dragons aren't under severe threat, but they still, they are being poached. I mean, private trade still, being collected for people that, people's aquariums, which is horrible.
Well, and the other thing that's really important to know with life cycle, Chris, is I know, at least with seahorses, so I don't know, I'm sure, of course, we don't have statistics on dragons, but these little horsefly offspring that are born, only one in about 1,000 survive to adulthood.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. It's a rough life for being a baby fish. It's rough.
Yeah,
it's rough. Little Nemo. Yeah. Little Nemo. He made it. Now, I have a picture. I don't know if you saw this one. Did you see the one with the seahorse and holding on to the cotton swab? It kind of made the rounds.
I did. That makes my stomach churn.
I know. I'm looking at it right now. I mean, that is, to me, that's why I think that picture is so powerful.
It is.
It shows what's going on in the oceans. And so these obviously are still at threat too, because, even though Australia waters are pretty clean, you don't have this great garbage patch like you do in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Still, there are chemicals, things that are going on in Florida, right? You just mentioned it before we started recording. The algae bloom, and that's killing off a lot lot of animals
turtles,
there.
Manatees,
and turtles.
Fish.
Yeah.
Probably tons of seahorses. We just don't, they're not making the headlines.
Yeah. It's we got to keep supporting the oceans and organizations that work to protect these species.
Oh, absolutely. And definitely the first one that I want to highlight today for sure is called Project Seahorse. Just like it sounds, projectseahorse.org. They have a great, beautiful website. Oh man, their pictures are incredible and a very interactive website. And of course, they're on Facebook. They have a nice Facebook presence as well. But Project Seahorse is a marine conservation organization dedicated to securing a world in which marine ecosystems are healthy and well managed, of course, for seahorse and other animals to live in. And they have three main aims. They want to save seahorses. So obviously we can all get behind that. They want to secure the world's shallow seas, and they want to train conservationists. So that's an amazing mission. And they do a lot of research in both seahorse biology and ecology, which is clearly very important, habitat and marine protected areas. They do research with small-scale fisheries and non-selective fisheries. And, of course, they focus a lot on trade and policy, right? Because policy is huge. And I was just really, really impressed by not only all the work that they do. I don't have, obviously, time to list everything, so check out their website. They have a newsletter. Click the donate button. But throughout the years since they've been in existence, they have done a lot. They've developed research and management options to drive recovery of actual seahorse populations around the world. So they're global. They're not just in one location. Because like you said, seahorses live in oceans all over the world.
Yeah,
and
all over. All over.
And they protected a lot of different areas, and they've empowered coalitions of many poor fishing families in Asia to help them out financially. And they have, of course, worked with groups that are fighting against the basically Chinese medicine and medicinal trade. And then they've done a lot with policy and regulations for marine fish and exports globally. So yeah, and
that's a good one. Yeah.
And for everybody listening too, if you check out Project Seahorse, they have a lot of citizen science options. So you could potentially get involved as well. And they have different ways to go about doing that. So, and they love seahorses.
Yeah, it's always nice. Yeah, it's nice if you're a diver, you listen to this podcast and you see a seahorse, you could go to Project Seahorse. I bet you that's probably one of the things that they do. And you report it and what it looked like. And that way they can start tracking some populations.
And they have a lot of education on there about why I care about seahorses. I mean, I think it's pretty easy once you see them, how cute they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, and they give you lots of tips and clues in how to get involved. So please check them out for sure. Them on Facebook and save seahorses. Yay. And Seadragons.
Yes.
So I couldn't find a Seadragon specific site. So somebody needs to start one. And
yeah, I know.
And let me know. But what I did find that I thought was kind of cool is the SEA Aquarium. So it spells C, but it's SEA Aquarium Marine Life Park in Singapore. They are part of the World Resorts.
Oh, I gotta go there.
Worlds in Sentosa. And
yeah, so just real quick, sorry, Singapore. Just because I was talking about it a couple weeks ago, and our friends from Florida visited. And the wife always, she travels to Singapore, and I'm like, oh, we got to meet you there. Singapore, it's a city, it's its own little entity, right? Country. And it is so green. And at the end of Planet Earth 2, Angie, I don't know if you saw it yet, but the end, they talk about human effects. Singapore, they're growing these buildings with trees in them.
Awesome.
On their porches, trees and put plants. So they're making these eco-friendly buildings. Oh, it's amazing. So yeah, Singapore's I gotta go there.
Yeah, well, you should go there because weedy Seadragons, that's the other one we talked about a little bit on the podcast. Only a limited number of aquariums worldwide have been able to breed them under human care. Currently, there are no reports of leafy Seadragons being able to breed under human care, but currently the team at the S.E.A Aquarium Marine Life Park in Singapore is currently attempting to replicate the precise conditions found in their natural environment in order to develop a successful breeding program to learn more about them. So, and then they also have a nice Facebook presence called Guardians of the Sea, and that's SEAA. So yeah, when you go there, check them out. And the aquarium is supposed to be one of the largest and biggest and best in the world, which is probably why they're tackling this mission to try to breed leafy Seadragons. And so hopefully in the future they'll have good success doing about that, because that will help in their conservation efforts.
Speaking of conservation efforts, I think this, whenever we do ocean, I always think, okay, what can I suggest to help, conserve water? So this week I was kind of thinking, focus on the yard. If you do live in a place where you have a yard, or even if you have potted plants, on a deck somewhere, say you live in an apartment building and you have potted plants. So some of the things you can do to help reduce water loss. And so I know Angie's got a pretty good yard there. So I expect you and John to be busy next weekend, because you should be mulching around your trees and plants. So instead of just bare soil, that
makes sense.
that will,
Keeps the moisture
yeah,
in.
yeah, protects the moisture. That way you don't have to water as often, and helps protect that. I go, in the United States, we'd go to Home Depot or Lowe's and buy the big bags of mulch. They're cheap, and spread it around. It made it look pretty, things like that. So that will help. Here's some tips. Yeah, maybe John should be listening to this one. So water your lawn only when needed. Now
we don't need it here.
Yeah, I know.
We're lucky.
I know, because it rains so much too. But most lawns only need 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters per week. I did not know that. So 1 inch of rain or water per week. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, or 2.5 centimeters for friends outside the US. Now, I didn't know this either. How do you know if your lawn needs to be watered? Well, if you go step on it, okay, and if it springs back up, you don't need to water it. There's plenty of moisture. If it stays flat, then you probably need to water your lawn. Okay. That means they're thirsty.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Also, mow above 3 inches or 7.5 centimeters. It drives me crazy here in New Zealand, like, especially with our, we're renting, we have to mow all the time, and everybody cuts their lawns so short here. It's like, that's no good. Yeah. It's like carpet grass. No, it's got to be 3 inches or more. That helps preserve water and moisture.
Correct.
So there you go. Mulch.
That's great.
So I want you and John mulching this weekend, if you guys are feeling good, and water the lawn only when needed, 1 inch per week or 2.5 centimeters. So there you go.
And especially if you live, I think, in a drought type place, looking to natural plants and grass species that don't need much water to begin with.
Right. Native
then
species.
That way you don't have to keep, that native species. That way you don't have to keep up with the Joneses, right?
Yeah. It's like, I think, especially like a decade ago and seeing Las Vegas there in Nevada in the US desert, and people just watering like crazy. And they're in this drought. And I know Lake Mead got like dangerously low, and it's just, somebody needs to come up with some, if you're that desperate for grass, like out in the desert, somebody needs to come up with some like synthetic roll out plastic grass. Like, whatever. You don't need a lawn in the desert. Make a little natural landscape, that kind of makes sense. All right. So the question, how many dragons are there, Angie?
Oh,
how many can you name?
Okay.
Yeah. How many can you name? Let's see on my list.
Well, okay. So there's the leafy sea dragon.
Okay. You got Seadragons, one.
Okay. Do each species count or no? Just sea dragons?
Yeah, there you go. It's the Seadragons.
Okay.
There's one.
A dragonfly.
Okay, two.
I used to take care of at the zoo bearded dragons.
Bearded dragons.
I love my bearded dragons. Oh,
okay.
They had such personalities. Yeah. And then Komodo dragon.
There you go. Okay, I was waiting. There you go, Dr.
And
Angie.
I feel like I'm out.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine because those are the ones I knew about. So that's fine. So Komodo dragon, that's the one my son. He always goes, "I wish dragons were real," and I'm like, "They are." Ha ha ha. And he's always like, "Not that one," because I was telling Komodo dragon.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one's we've got to cover that one. That one's pretty. I've got to meet a Komodo dragon up in personal. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, they only live on the Komodo Island. Like it's that one area on Earth, but they're pretty nasty. Now, bearded dragons, like you said, sometimes people keep them as pets. They're from Australia. Dragonflies are everywhere.
I love dragonflies.
Except Antarctica. So they're not in Antarctica.
Fun fact, I didn't know that.
Now, the reason they're called dragonflies, this was a little nice factoid, is because in England, they looked at them and it's the way they fly. And they fly kind of like zipping around their acrobatics when they're catching their prey. So they thought that looked like a dragon. That's where they got their name, dragonfly.
Chris, very interesting. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, now here's a couple other ones. Dragon snake.
No. Yeah.
Which looks really cool. Indonesia, Malaysia, scales are like a dragon. This one, oh my God, the shocking pink dragon millipede from Southeast Asia. Wow. Looks gnarly.
I bet.
Looks gnarly.
Put a picture up for sure.
Yeah, it's like, stay away from me. I'm poisonous.
But pink,
don't eat me.
And poisonous.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's pretty that. Now the flying dragon.
I don't know.
Do you remember that one? I've seen this one. I don't know if it was in Planet Earth 2.
Like a squirrel
or the first Planet Earth. No, it's a lizard that glides.
Oh,
it has membranes.
Okay.
And so it jumps out of the tree, like especially when it's escaping predation, and glides down like a flying squirrel.
Okay, I feel like I can kind of picture that.
Okay, I think it was Planet Earth 2. They had a thing on that.
A flying dragon, a lizard.
Yeah,
All
it's called flying dragon. Dragonettes, which is a fish, pretty pretty.
Okay.
It's pretty elaborate, kind of like the sea dragons.
Monkeys.
Now this one looks scary, and it's from the deep sea in the Atlantic, and it's called the black dragonfish. It's one of those crazy eel-looking, crazy jaws with the big teeth, big eyes, just nasty.
Maybe next time Rourke asks, maybe show him that one. Be like, I found it, buddy. Like, I found it.
All right. So that's it. For us, thank you to our Patreon subscribers.
Thanks, Mom.
Please visit us there. Yeah, thanks, Mom. All the messages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Thank you. You can follow
please
us
keep them coming. They're so wonderful. They're really inspiring and keep us wanting to keep fighting the good fight and having fun with this podcast weekly. So thank you.
Yeah. And visit us allcreaturespod.com. But thanks for joining us. Seadragons, amazing. Like, just wow.
The prettiest thing we've covered yet. I have to agree with Chris on that.
All right. So send us tell us first, besides hyenas, any other female mate, or females fighting over males. That's the homework for the listeners.
Okay.
And then, and, any prettier animal on Earth than a sea dragon.
Ooh, there's
Post
a challenge. Yeah,
Facebook.
put that on Facebook too. That's a really good challenge.
Yeah. Show us the prettiest animal on Earth. And it's not a naked mole rat. I will tell you that.
Hey, Corbin had naked mole rats on Good Morning America or whatever one he goes on all the time.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. He did. He was pretty cool. He was promoting them, and I don't know if the people on there fell in love with him, but he did a good job attempting to make them, and they were pretty cute. Walking around the table, they were pretty cute.
I think it's our podcast. Thanks, Corbin. Thanks for listening, learning about naked mole rats, and now get some sea dragons.
Yes, sea dragons.
Good luck. All right, take care.
Bye.
Listen, learn, share. Join the movement at allcreaturespod.com.